About.
It's certainly something, it really depends on what part of the state that you're in. So, for example, here in Columbus, we've really seen and are projecting a significant increase in our population. And a lot of that is based around young people who, like me, weren't born here, but, came here because we like this city. We're blessed to be managed and run by a fantastic group of progressive leaders at basically every level. But then there are a lot of other parts of our state, the more rural parts of our state, where young people are sort of forced to leave because it's been very difficult for them to find employment.
Mm-hmm.
We're obviously one of the worst states in the country when it comes to the opioid epidemic. And so there are a lot of people who unfortunately have felt the need to relocate because of work. And a lot of those are, younger folks who have families or, who have no choice. And so certainly that's something we're seeing. I know that we're not really growing like some other states are. So I think that's primarily why there are discussions that we may, when we go through the census process, lose yet another congressional seat. But it's certainly something, the brain drain is something that has been a topic of discussion for folks at all levels across the state, and certainly something that we're paying attention to. We have so many wonderful institutions of higher education in this state, and so we want to do what we can to take students who went to school at those institutions and keep them here in Ohio, because we're hopeful that one day a lot of them might be interested in running for office and fighting the good fight.
Have you been seeing more people, more young Democrats running for office? Have you been seeing more young women Democrats running for office? What kinds of offices are young Democrats running for? What is the electoral landscape for the young Democrats right now?
So in 2016, which was the first year that I sort of took over in charge of the statewide group, we had a number of young Democrats running for state legislative seats, which for us is just wonderful because the legislature, we're in minorities in both places, but the more that we can elect Democrats to have a voice and to push back against the statewide office holders, the better. And so in 2016, unfortunately, in Ohio, it was a really, really bad year, and only our young Democrat incumbents in Democrat districts were able to succeed. The ones who were running in Republican lean districts or open seats didn't have a ton of success. But we're hopeful that in 2018, a number of them have chosen to sort of run again. So we're hopeful that this year they'll have better luck. So we're really excited about that. But last year it was just, I don't even have words. It was a phenomenal year. We had 60 young Democrats elected to local offices across the state last year. And these are in some of our urban areas, for example, like Columbus and Cleveland and Cincinnati, but then also in some of our more rural areas. In Wilmington, for example, 3 young Democrats were elected to Wilmington City Council. They ran as a slate. That's first time ever that's happened somewhere like that. We elected young Democrats to things like city attorney. City auditor we elected in Columbus was the first woman and the first LGBT executive elected in Columbus, and she's under the age of 35. So we just had these wonderfully talented, intelligent young people decide that 2017 was the year that they wanted to step up and be heard. We elected a 19-year-old to Yorksville City Council. I could go on and on and on. We had a number of women who ran and were successful, and a number of people of color as well as, and a number of LGBT folks. So in Toledo, we elected a young Democrat LGBT city councilman. He's going to be the only young Democrat on the Toledo City Council. And in Newark, Ohio, which I don't know if you guys know much about Newark, but it's in a pretty rural, conservative part of the state. They now have 2 LGBT young Democrat members on their city council. So it was just a really, really good year for us and gave us an opportunity to really talk about what the next generation of leadership looks like in Ohio. And that's one that, cares about our communities, but that also, is really focused on making things better for people. And so the more Democrats that we have in office, the more good work they can do, the more voters can see that, Democrats are the folks that are really working day in and day out for them. And hopefully, that will help us in the future.
It sounds like you're seeing something that we've been hearing a lot, which is that there are actually a lot of sort of hidden Democrats around, especially. So my parents are in Stark County, and, I think they feel like there are no Democrats around them, where, actually they're just not, they need like a secret symbol or something to say, hey, we're all here. But, if you're having such great luck electing people, in places like Newark, then it sounds like there really are a lot more Democrats than people realize.
And I think part of it too is that a lot of these races in 2017 were nonpartisan. And so there is no party affiliation that appears on the ballot. So it's really more, sometimes the Democratic parties do make endorsements, and the Ohio Young Democrats certainly did what we could to be helpful, attaching, our name and encouraging people to go out and vote for these candidates. But it was really an opportunity for these candidates to get out, and in a lot of these races, it's manageable for the candidates to go, or the candidates and their volunteers to go and knock on the door of every single voter. Some of our young candidates, went through their universes 2 or 3 times. So they really got to know their neighbors and talk to them about sort of the issues that they're facing. And so, the hard work is really paid off for a number of our folks. And so now we're hopeful that, the message and the things that they talked to their neighbors about that they wanted to accomplish, that they're at least going to be able to do some of those things, because, then when they go back to their neighbors in a year and say, remember me, you elected me last year. Well, this year I'm here because I really want you to vote for Sherrod Brown, then, or Kathleen Klatt, or any of our number of great candidates who are running statewide this year. We're hopeful that, the voters will remember that. And we're hopeful that we might be able to move some people who maybe otherwise identify as independents, or maybe didn't even know that they voted for a Democrat the past year.
If our listeners are young enough, we have a lot of listeners in Ohio, so for those who are under 40, how do they go about joining your group?
Sure. So if you have a local chapter, you can find out if you do on our website, ohioyd.org, and you can fill out a form to connect with the local chapter leadership. And if you don't have a local chapter, if you're really interested in getting involved and want to start one, we can give you resources and guide you and help you get started there as well. You can also find us on Facebook and on Twitter at OhioYD. So we try to stay pretty active online. We also meet quarterly in different parts around the state. So we're likely going to be, for any of your listeners who are from different parts of the state, we'll likely be in your part of the state at some point this year. We're going to be in Cincinnati on February 24th, for example. If you're not sure what we're about, or you want to learn more, coming to our meetings is always a good opportunity. And then we also regularly have conference calls where we'll bring on guests who will answer questions either about some of those policy issues we talked about. So for instance, we had the executive director of Equality Ohio on to talk through, the bills that they're watching in the legislature and the impact they could have on LGBT issues. But then we're also bringing on statewide candidates and young Democrat candidates so that our members can get to know them and learn how they can engage on the campaigns. So it's going to be a really big year. We need all hands on deck. So the more people who are interested in getting involved, the better.
All right. I know we have listeners in Cincinnati and Youngstown because I see them show up on our geolocation. So you guys should definitely get involved.
Our Youngstown chapter is amazing. They started, I should give them a little shout out. They started like a year and a half ago, and they're up to close to 100 members. They meet and organize regularly, and they are just a force to be reckoned with. All of our chapters are wonderful, but that group has really, they have grown significantly in a way that's really impressive.
Shout out to Youngstown. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
right. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that our listeners know?
For the folks who aren't in Ohio, I know sometimes people talk about how we may have lost our reputation as being a swing state because of the outcome of the election in 2016. But I think Ohio is going to show you in 2018 that we really are a swing state. We're hopeful that we're going to keep Sherrod Brown in the Senate, but for anybody who's not from Ohio and you're interested in helping out, we will have plenty of opportunities to get engaged to help make sure that we turn Ohio blue. this coming year. So, join Ohio YD, sign up for our website. On our website, you don't even have to be a young Democrat to do that. And there'll be plenty of ways for people to help remotely.
All right. That's super exciting. I would love to see Ohio turn blue again.
Yes. Me too.
All right. Well, thank you, Jen. This has been really fun.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. I guess even if I move back to Ohio, you're unlikely to see me as a young Democrat unless I move really quickly. But, maybe Sophie will join you at some point.
That would be great.
Maybe. And I have 2 younger sisters who I should hope are listening to this podcast, who should be getting involved right now.
Yes.
You have my email address, so you can absolutely connect me to them. I will recruit them.
Right.
One of them will be good. The other one, I am ashamed to admit, was a Johnson voter in 2016, but I think you could convert her.
Oh, I'll do my best.
I have faith.
All right. And if my brother and sister-in-law are listening, you better be joining up too down in Cincinnati.
All across the state.
Yes, indeed. All right. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm here with someone who is running for Congress in the Ohio 16th District. His name is Aaron Godfrey. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much for coming on. I've been excited about this one because I am from the 16th District in Ohio, and my parents and several other relatives still live there. So it's a district that I know better than any other part of Ohio.
All right. Well, I hope I can get their vote, and hopefully by the end of this, you can help me convince them to vote for me.
Yeah. So that's the main purpose here, is at least convince my parents. So let's just start out with a little bit about what's your background and why are you running for Congress?
Well, my background isn't quite in politics. I actually have a master's in physics, and I work in that field. I got it from Miami University in 2010. I like to joke around that I was the only poor person I knew there. I don't know how I wound up at that school, but I was there. I got interested in running for office because, especially, I've always been like a participant to some extent, whether or not it was observing for the most part or, supporting candidates I believed in and wanted to see win. I've always been engaged to some extent, at least since high school. When I saw, we all remember that awful day in November last year, or 2 years ago now. Whoa, man, time flies. But we all remember what 2016 November, what happened. When I saw that happen, and when he got inaugurated, when he gave that super dark speech about his vision of America and where it was going, I couldn't just sit by anymore and just be sitting on the sidelines. It's something that I thought that I could really do good in, and ultimately that's what I've wanted to do with my life, is just do good. The reason I originally majored in physics was because I wanted to work on renewable energy tech, because that was, I thought, the best way to use my skills to contribute to the greater good and the advancement of society and what have you. But when all this happened, when I heard that inauguration speech, I just thought, I know I could deal with what campaigning entails. I knew that I could deal with working a full-time job and then immediately doing campaign stuff for the next 6 or 7 hours afterwards. And I just thought that if I can deal with this, if I can be a voice for our generation, a new generation coming up through politics, then I have no excuse not to do it. I'd be doing a disservice to myself and the country and the district if I didn't do everything I could to do right by the people.
So you mentioned renewable energy. What are other issues that are really important to you?
Well, climate change is a big issue for me, for sure. I mean, it's an issue that Congress repeatedly kicks the can on. No one in there cares at all, or I shouldn't say no one in there cares at all, but the majority party certainly doesn't care. They're fine with the status quo and whatever makes they themselves better off. But it's not the only issue I'm running on. That is one of the big issues I'm running on, but 2 others are very important to me. Another one that is personally a huge deal to me is healthcare. I think that we ultimately need to be working towards a Medicare for all sort of situation in this country, and I realize that we can't just switch that on overnight. Like, we have to transition to it we're asking a huge part of the economy to reorganize around that kind of a plan. But ultimately, I believe that the government exists to protect and serve the people, not profits or corporate interest. So to me, this is inevitably the place and I think that regardless of